what it's, y'all.
Right?
Yeah.
Woo! Good way to take 30 seconds, a little dance break to get us
Yes.
going
Yes.
today. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how are you doing?
Whew. I am holding a lot of grief and gratitude. But as I was
Hmm.
reading some article today about the center is holding. So it is good.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you
I
know,
hear what you're saying. Yes.
so much swirling in our world and our families and our lives, and I am grateful to be here with you and
Yes.
to have some yummy conversations and
Yes. Me
talk
too.
about wellness. So should we do intros and then dive in more about how we are and what
Yeah.
we're talking about today?
Yeah. Let's do intros at the intro of the show instead of 5, 10 minutes in like we do sometimes. Okay. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of ShealoGlo LLC, a handmade shea butter company. I'm your advocate for natural self care and practical business systems.
Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author who helps you upgrade yourself in community care.
Yes, and together we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week to have intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because we
yes.
know figuring this stuff out by ourselves is not much fun. Figuring it out together
And
is way more fun.
and I'm all about being effective with time. So if you could help me fast forward 10 years, then why not do that instead of figure everything out for the first time by myself?
Ah, I
Yeah,
like it. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, today we're talking about environmental wellness.
yes,
You
yes,
want to
we
give
are.
our
And
listeners a definition?
absolutely, we're going with environmental wellness is having good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well being. It promotes interaction with nature and also creating an enjoyable personal environment both in and out of your workplace.
Will you read that first sentence again?
Yes, environmental wellness is having good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being.
When you read it today, the question that bubbled up for me is
Mm,
what does that mean for people?
mm,
Because, we're all individuals. We all come from different backgrounds and different places and different ages and different stages and different races. And so, what does, well, let me just ask you, my friend,
yeah.
what is a pleasant and stimulating environment for you?
So for me, I'll give you in work and out of work since it talks about both, right? In the workplace, stimulating and pleasant means open communication. We can have constructive conversations as a team, right? Hey, Christine, this is how I felt like what you said came off as to the team, right? And you take that and we move forward together, but it's not being um, petty or overly political the way that unhealthy environments can, or that's what unhealthy environments are for me personally, right? So
Right?
open communication, I would say, um, development. Also, we say stimulating, so not just pleasant. It's not just niceties. It's also, hey, this is what you need to develop to get to the next level and where we're trying to go for what the team needs. And it's the same thing at home. At home, I would like it to be more relaxing than I expect it to be at work. Um, and at home, I still like open communication, transparency, so we can deal with situations and continue to move forward together. And I love it to smell good and good food. Like we talk about laughing
Mhm.
and dancing to make sure that we're incorporating those things into all of the other situations that we deal with life. What
Mm,
about you?
I love that. Well, I was thinking about that because, I am not a minimalist. Like,
Mm,
the first thing that sometimes pops into my mind is like those magazine covers where everything's clean and perfect, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, I do really well in those environments, but that's not the reality of my life, right?
mm,
I live with a
that
bunch of
makes sense.
artists and we're not minimalist. I mean, we've tried, and every time I move, I want to become a minimalist. You know, you ever have that feeling like you're like, why can't I? But I do like clean surfaces. I had a dear friend that was about 10 years older than me when I was pretty young say, if the whole place can't be clean, clear your countertops and your surfaces. So like that is always soothing to me. And I want to make it to a place that everything has its place. And, you know, our guest last 2 shows ago, Melody LeBaron, she's a genius at that. And I'm striving towards that, but I have not met that goal in 50 plus years. So we'll see, you know, second half of the life, it might work.
We're connected to wise women now. Who knows?
Right? We're connected to wise women. I think stimulating, I mean, with somebody that identifies as neurodiverse and with ADD, like my brain is always stimulated. So there's like ways that are really like, sometimes I love music on and sometimes I just can't, it's too much, right? It kind of, I guess part of the answer to that question is it depends on the day, right? Like I love good smells. When you said good smells, oh yeah. Like if I can have good smells all the time, I really love that. Now, you know, it depends on what mood I'm in, what smells good that day, right? Is it like the pumpkin spice candle that I've been burning, or is it the smell of Lysol because somebody else cleaned the bathroom and it wasn't me?
That's true, and that's the pleasant, right? You're anticipating.
Right, it's a pleasant and stimulating when I walk in.
Exactly.
And somebody's cracked open the Lysol besides me. Like that is very like, yes, that smell right there.
That's what I've been missing. It's been too long.
Right. It just makes you, and then, but you know that moment. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show because it is a moment I recreate in my brain often, less often in reality than in my brain. But that moment when the house is clean and you have that fresh smell, and I always go get a cup of tea and I sit on the couch and like where I look, things are in their place. The smell is there. I often put on some like acoustical guitar music and drink a cup of tea.
I like that.
Right?
I've been thinking about tea, and I like sitting in the reset of your home and enjoying the space. I think I'm going to use that because I usually, I'm sorry, I feel like I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I think that when let's say you asked me if I make my bed the other day last week, right? I said absolutely every day. But I usually make it and then leave. And so the spaces that I clean up are usually to reset the space, but then I leave and don't get to enjoy it. Next time I come, I'm messing it up again. And so I like the idea of sitting in it and enjoying it for a second, because
savoring it.
Say that way.
Right? Savoring it, because I think especially as women, we're so busy, like our to-do, like I could pull up my task list right now and it's way longer than any person tells you it's supposed to be. I think we're supposed to have realistically 3 to 5 things on our task list a day,
3.
right? Right? What? Okay.
3-ish.
But you know, we're going, and sometimes we don't savor, like we don't take a moment to pause. You know, we talked about that. I can't remember if we talked about that online or on the air or off. We were talking about, do we make our beds, right? Because right before the show last week, I had run into my bedroom for something, which is unusual at this time of day. And my bed just looked like this beautiful present and package because it was made, and it was all the way made. Like, you know, there's made and then there's all the way made, right? Yes, and Joe, my sweetheart, that day had been the last one out of bed, and he had put the fancy pillows on it and everything. I was like, whoa, look at that present of my bed, right? And I just think about, I mean, going with that theme of present, it's a gift to ourselves, right? But everybody has what's a different gift that we can give ourselves during this season? And you and I were talking before the show, talking about environmental wellness, and all of it ties in, all our 8 dimensions of wellness, and talking about maintaining our environment and our mental health during the holiday season. And I mean, let's face it, still during a pandemic, we've got this next variant coming out, and who knows,
Right.
who knows what's happening at the end of this year and towards next year. But I was noodling around looking for resources, and I came across a blog at the NAMI California, which NAMI, for folks who have not heard of them, I've been associated with this organization for years. I used to be a presenter for them way back in the day, but they are the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And they wrote an article out in California that talked about stress during the holidays specifically. Now, this was interesting, Shannon. This study showed that 64% of people with mental illness reported that holidays make their conditions worse. That makes total sense to me. Like, whether you identify with a mental illness or not, like, holidays are stressful, right?
Yeah.
It says for many people, the holiday season is not always the most wonderful time of the year, said NAMI medical director Ken Duckworth. And this was in an interview before the pandemic. Well, you think about it, like, a lot of people who identify with mental illness or identify as having a mental illness have a lot of trauma in their lives too. And then for people who are undiagnosed or have it, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And even outside of just the expectations, right? If we know that more than 70% of America was living from check to check, then that means they didn't have a lot of free time to give to extra stuff. And during the holidays, you're expected to be there a lot of times. So it takes up that time for yourself too.
Right. Well, or you see all those commercials on TV that, oh, you should have this, or you should have that, or all the cool kids have this, or, if you really loved your family, you buy them this. And you're like, yeah, it's a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure. In this article talking about that, I'm going to skip down a little bit because there was I know we're going to go back and forth and go through this article, but talking about that, I want to jump right down to the bullet point that says be realistic, because this cracked me up and it was so on point with what we're talking about today. It said, even pre-pandemic, the happy lives of people shown in those holiday commercials are fictional. We all have struggles at one time or another, and it's not realistic to expect otherwise. Sometimes it's simply not possible to find the perfect gift or have a peaceful time with family. Yes, even Zoom family gatherings can be stressful, especially when, for me, they're torture, because I teach people how to do things in Zoom in my private consulting. And Lord, mute yourself, family. I love you, but mute yourself, because otherwise I want to mute you all. So, you want to talk more about this article?
Oh, so when we talk about be realistic, especially with the new ShealoGlo products out, a new position, we're doing amazing stuff with Women Connected in Wisdom. I've really had to be realistic with my to-do list, and that's what the planner and everything that we talk about all the time helps me with. Not that I always get everything done, but again, I could say, you know what, these two goals that I thought were going to happen 2 weeks ago, we're still in the same month, so let's get it done this week, and we just move stuff when it needs to happen, or again, push back deadlines, do whatever we need to do to still reach that goal. The timeline might be different, but to still get to the destination is the important part. And I've been moving stuff based on how much rest I need. Prioritizing taking care of yourself with the thank you.
Can we just pause?
Yes.
Can we just pause and give you a hand, and everybody that's listening a hand, that prioritizes rest?
Yeah.
Because, our culture often prioritizes or glorifies the lack of rest or the push. So thank you for taking care of yourself, my friend.
Yes, of course. And we have to be realistic. And what my body says is, hey, if you increase over here, something needs to decrease. Or we also need to increase the stretching, decrease the running since you're walking 10 times as much as you used to, and increase the abs and the stretching, So just going with the flow of situations and being realistic with where you are with everything helps.
You know, my new puppy Monty is teaching me a
Mm,
lot about this, Shannon, because
mm,
we take walks, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
like yesterday we took a walk in the park and he was fine until a little after mile two. And he's like,
Mm,
all right, we're done. I'm
mm,
gonna lay down here. I'm not gonna move. I am gonna
mm,
I'm done, right? And
yeah,
then we did it later in the day yesterday. So I didn't give enough rest time. So this morning, like when there was a break in the rain, I am out there. It was
yeah.
pretty early morning. And he's all like, "You're kidding me, right? Like, we just did this." Like, so he only went about a half a mile before he sat down. It was like,
I know
hey,
how far she's trying to go.
she's
Yeah,
pushing me, people. She's pushing me. So there was a little more carrying than usual. But yeah, it is that paying attention to our bodies and what
yeah,
do we need and being realistic. I heard you say that because
yeah,
I was working on a spreadsheet this week for my business that
yeah.
here's what I put on it. You'll love this. It said task,
Hmm.
how much time I think it takes, how
Mm,
much time it actually takes.
hmm. I think
Like,
an actual column. I like it. Yeah, yeah. Way to take care of your time management. Yes, yes,
right? Working
ma'am.
on it as I look
That's
towards
realistic.
2022 and how
Yeah.
many clients I want to accept and how many, we're on episode, episode are we on today? 47,
Oh, yes, I believe we are 47. I was looking at it after
right?
we were questioning it last week.
And we're going to hit our 1 year anniversary at the very beginning of 2022. Shout out to
Yes.
all our listeners. Gratitude for everybody that's out there subscribing and downloading and liking and leaving us comments. We appreciate you. But,
Yeah.
that's a lot of podcasts. We're going to hit 50 on our year anniversary.
Yes.
So it's exciting. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's talk about this article a little more because I think there's some very practical tips for folks, for our listeners out here. I like this one. It said, accept your needs. This one was, be kind to yourself. This makes me think about our guest, Dr. Cynthia Phelps, who does the
Mhm.
inner ally work, right?
Yeah.
Put your own mental and physical well being first. Whew. For caregivers, that's a hard one. Put your own mental and physical well being first. Recognize what your triggers are to help you prepare for stressful situations. Is shopping for holiday gifts too stressful for you? What is
Mm.
making you feel physically and mentally agitated? Once you know this, you can take steps to avoid or cope with stress. So, that body wisdom that we talk about in interplay, that I talk about with my clients, that really checking in with ourselves and knowing what is it?
Hmm. Yes. And really,
I
is it? No, go ahead. What were we going to say?
I was just thinking, like, I've never considered myself a huge shopper.
Okay.
Like, there's even before pre-pandemic, I didn't like the hustle and bustle. Like, I like to
Hmm.
think about it. Like,
Hmm.
I love online shopping. Like,
Hmm.
I love like going to Etsy and buying really cool individualized product. Like, there's something about being intentional with it, right? Occasionally,
Yeah.
I would, before pre-pandemic, I like to dress up and go in the hustle and bustle, but not a lot. Because more
Hmm.
often I would get like meltdown. You're getting the thing on
Right.
the end cap because I can't think straight, right?
Yes.
What about you? Like around the holidays
Ooh.
and holiday
So
shopping?
I was not for the trampling stampede. No, I was
Hmm.
never for it, So I usually did not go out on Black Friday. And we talk about financial wellness. I would, you get excited. You see something that you might be interested in, you see it at a good price. And I had to remember it's not a sale that matters if you don't have the money anyways. So even if it's
Right?
half off, if you don't have the
Right?
money for it, it's not really a sale. You still shouldn't buy it if you're being financially wise. Um,
Right?
and so I've always enjoyed shopping. Now, being more financially wise, I'll be able to take advantage of the deals and do it more than I used to. So for me, really, I was crocheting around this time of year, which was
Right.
really soothing for me. I love, people always
Mm.
compare it to grandma's, but I've been crocheting for the past 20 years. Okay. And it has definitely helped me with the stress. And ironically, it has always coincided with the holidays. I'm usually not crocheting over my bathing suit by the pool. It's usually when it's
Right.
getting warmer and we're giving hats and blankets and stuff
I
as
love
presents.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. I forgot that. We talked about that last year with your
I just realized that
crocheting.
it's usually, yeah,
I
the
love
same
that.
amount of time.
I don't know if you know that Alex, my oldest, she crochets and she makes these
Okay.
really cute little
I didn't know that.
animals and
I've seen it.
keychains and little like I keep trying to convince her to make an Etsy store, but she's all like, Mom, no, that's too stressful. I just like to do it for my friends and family, which is a good
Mm.
boundary, right? Like she's
Yes,
very
yes,
aware,
yes.
like, nope, I don't want to commercialize that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
accepting our needs. Well,
And
and
for
just
ex-
checking in with ourselves.
and that's what I was about to say. To accept your needs, you have to know what they are. And when I stepped down from my first salary position, I realized that I had forgotten a lot of the things that I wanted for myself or that I needed um, in certain moments to take care of certain things because now, again, my financial situation was changing. And so I had to recalibrate everything all over again. So I think it's the constant checking in. And what is your need today? Like you said, sometimes I might want to smell pumpkin spice. Sometimes I better smell the Lysol when I come through the door. And you wouldn't think that it would be that, but that's the reality of the
Right.
situations and how they trigger us. And I think that's another huge thing that shouldn't be minimized from this point is knowing your triggers, like your allergies. People know they're allergic to shellfish, but you didn't realize that every time somebody makes a joke about social media, you think about your partner cheating on you and it triggers you. And now you're going to
Right.
that person and a certain energy when that energy isn't for them. That's because you're having a mental allergic reaction to something somebody else said. So really being in tune with yourself, knowing what your needs are, and then knowing how to take care of yourself so the triggers don't push you as easily because people are going to do what they do, especially in the holidays.
Right,
Everybody's
especially
running
around
around.
family, because family knows
Yeah.
us better than anybody, and they
Hmm.
sometimes tease, but that can be really hurtful or
Yeah.
trigger, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my private coaching, sometimes I come across clients who ask me, Christine, I don't even know what my body wants or needs. Like, how do you
Mm.
do that? So I just want to give a tip to our listeners out there. Like, one of the first things is to just take a deep breath, like, and fully feel your breath coming in and out of your body, right?
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it's also like we're so busy doing, we often don't even think about that, right?
Yes.
And then like finding some time to just sit and breathe and check in with your body. And like I kind of do a body scan. Now, I love to do this. I just did it this morning. I was leading a pop-ups class. My colleague Carolyn Renee, who has been on the show before,
Yeah.
she was first season, and
Mm.
she's been doing these pop-up classes, and I've been leading for her on Wednesday mornings. And
Mm.
we always do some movement, and we do movement to a really fun piece of music, and then we stop and we just kind of do a body scan and we check in with what really feels good in our bodies at that moment. And we just take a moment to breathe into that place of wellness.
Mm.
And then we take a moment and we do a scan to what doesn't feel good, like what's crunchy or what's talking to us. Because the other thing I know to be true, especially for women and especially for caretakers, we often ignore our pain in our bodies because we don't have time for it. So
Mm.
acknowledging it and making sure it's not serious too, right? So I have them scan and I have them scan for places that may need extra support that day. And then we just breathe between that place of wellness and between the place of that needs extra support.
Hmm. I love
Because
it.
sometimes
And I
it's the naming of it. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, no, and I think it's very important to name which area it is, and then you'll know what to do to remedy it or to prevent it if you can, or address it if that's what needs to happen. Um, and I love what you said. We often ignore it because we don't have the time to address it. That
Right.
makes sense. And I love what you said about the balance because a lot of times I would say when I tell people about rubbing ShealoGlo on your joints every night because it helps with arthritis, like I do, or when you're massaging yourself, I run into stuff like it's really crazy how coordinated and clumsy I am at the same time. It's crazy. But like I'll notice bruises or, something that's cut and it's like, how did I get cut? But I hadn't thought about tapping into the place that feels good too. And then breathing. And I think you had said it before, breathing in between the wellness and the discomfort. I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So just taking that moment, and then I also, if I'm in a stressful situation and I get triggered by a family member or, something that has happened, or often getting put back in a role that no longer fits me, because that happens sometimes when we go home with families, is they still see us as that 14-year-old or that 16-year-old. And so we get, oh, they'll be fine with that. Yeah, no, I'm not. Like, I outgrew that 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So when something like that happens, even that taking a moment, like to go into the bathroom and breathe or step outside, I think on this list, we lost Shannon for some technical, so she'll be right back, hopefully. But, it talks about in this article, it also talks about spending time in nature, that studies show that time in nature reduces stress. And that if you need a break from the family during the holiday gathering, you can take a walk in a local park. You could go just outside, but if you need to go to the park, that's a good thing.
I like that. That makes me want to just schedule a park visit around the holidays. And when you have company in town, make sure outside time or time that could help people decompress is part of it.
Yeah. We've got a comment from one of our listeners, Ruth, that I didn't completely understand. So I don't know what VOY. Do you know what that stands for? VOY? Okay, you might have to spell that out for us, Ruth, because I don't know that acronym.
I was going to say, I know what it is in Spanish. I don't know what it is as an acronym.
Right? Well, it could be. It could be. No worries. All right. I'm glad you made it back real quick.
Yes, thank you. Scam likely. Stop calling my phone.
Right? It just kicked you off. Yeah. Well, we talked about, I think we mentioned this last week, but I want to bring it back up because I think it is something that a lot of us practice, but it's easy to get out of practice during this time of the year. And it's write a gratitude list and offer thanks. That as we near the end of the year, it's a good time to reflect back on what you're grateful for and then thank those who have supported you. 2020, 2021, the last 2 years have been especially challenging for a lot of people. And in the midst of it all, is there someone or something for whom you're grateful?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And again, if you listen to the show all the time, you know that that's something that I watch in myself as a trigger. Am I getting off of, or not as a trigger, but as the evidence of maybe something triggered me getting off of my schedule for the self-care, right? Me not doing my gratitude list. And so I did start it back, and you could definitely tell the difference in those days. It just feels like, again, things move you a little bit easier. The weight is a little bit heavier. You're ruminating and going through the situation a little more often than you would if you were more, or when I am more reflective on the amazing things that I have no control over, but I get to enjoy every day.
Right. Well, in Interplay, we call it affirmation, the looking for the good. It is not ignoring that there's bad out there. I mean, we know there's bad out there. There's racism, there's sexism, there's all kinds of isms, there's all kinds of things that are not good in the world. Right. I don't know if I like that you said that right with me right now, but no.
That's not we gotta get over. I love you.
I know. But there's all that. But the affirming and the looking for the good, what is working, what is I was thinking this morning, I was so grateful for this warm pair of socks I had because it's gotten chilly in Georgia. Those of us that are listening to us from up north, you'll laugh at us because it gets close to freezing and we're cold. But that's on my gratitude list right now because I have this warm, fuzzy pair of socks, and I'm grateful for my toes being warm. It doesn't have to be like big things. It can be, to me, sometimes the little things are even more precious.
Absolutely. And I mean, we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He says that if you don't have those things at the bottom, you can't even worry about love and belonging and your
Mhm.
community and other people and self-actualization, knowing your habits and knowing what your needs are. If you're outside and it's cold and you don't have socks, you don't have a coat. Today I had to
Right.
change my outfit going to the farmer's market. I had something on my coat, changed the outfit, looked great, color scheme I've been thinking about, threw on this coat to make me warmer. And those are two things that one of our homeless community indicator asked for last year. I used to have this woman I would stop and talk to, and what she wanted last winter was some socks and a coat. And both of us
Right.
have those things. So I'm grateful.
Right. Yeah, on the list later down, it talks about volunteering, and I know both you and I do that, and I'm grateful
Yeah.
for. I mean, you even saying that, Shannon. Like, I know you got her a coat and socks, so thank you.
No,
Like,
and I didn't get it for her, but I did ask for her and held space for her because last
and you
year
got
was
okay,
COVID and I was in the position to
yeah,
financially, and that's also smart. As women, sometimes we continue to overextend ourselves, and
yeah,
that's what puts us in financial positions. So usually, absolutely, I would be that person. Last
yeah,
year, like a lot of people, we're talking transparency, so we
yeah,
can help each other get better.
yeah,
I was like, I don't have it. Now that I'm more financially literate, I know I probably shouldn't give it to you, but I still cared about her. I was still gonna
yes,
give her
yeah,
energy, make sure she felt seen,
yeah,
and I asked her what she needed so I could hold space for her.
yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And also, we can get,
I,
if we don't have it ourselves, we can get people connected to resources. Because,
absolutely.
I've been in that situation before where I couldn't at that moment do it, but I had
Right,
access to a computer where I could look up somebody that could. I mean,
exactly.
there's different ways, right? Different
Yeah,
ways to engage and be connected. I love that.
absolutely.
What's
Yeah.
on your gratitude list this morning?
Oh, my gratitude list. Let me see. What did I say? Because I try to change it. That's the rules, and I write the same thing over and over again. So let me see if I can remember without getting a journal. I don't know if it was on the list this morning, but I know it has been recently, and we can talk about it. Having a better relationship with my body and being more in tune with it. Like we said, I used to not always think about why certain things like acne were happening and just worry about it after it happened and the repercussions instead of being preventative. So
Hmm.
now I'll be weeks out of something and say, hey, what's that? Hey, what's that? Or I'll feel that my legs are getting sore as it's happening. So I go ahead and stretch before days out. And now I'm in a position. So that's something I've been grateful for as a young woman that's getting older and paying attention to the different things in my body. I'm definitely glad that we have me and her, me and my body have a great relationship. And I try to give more space for that instead of I gotta go to the bank, I need to go to the market, I need to go to work and never
Right.
checking in with my body. I was watching this episode of Red Table Talk. They were talking about vaginal health. And they said, if your vagina could talk, how happy would she be? How well taken care of is she? And so I think about that for my body. That's a great question. What would my body say? Am I
Right.
taking care of her? So yes.
Right? It's a good, and often we're so busy doing, we don't stop and think about it. Like,
Yeah.
how are you? What's going
Yeah.
on?
Check
What do
in.
you
Check
need?
in.
Right? Or what
Hmm.
do you not need? Right? During
Right.
these times.
Hmm. Yes. So that's what I'm grateful for as a Black woman who has a company and is doing all these things. I also have the resources to take care of myself. That's what I've been focused on the past few weeks.
I love that. Well, speaking of a businesswoman, a Black young millennial businesswoman, I'm going to shout out the next one, which I think you're very good at.
Thank
And
you.
we all, as business owners, need a callback to this one, right?
Mm,
Manage your time and don't try to do too much. Prioritizing your time and activities can help you use your time well. Making a day to day schedule, which you are a genius at, helps
thank you.
ensure you don't feel overwhelmed by everyday tasks and deadlines. It's okay to say no to plans that don't fit into your schedule or that don't make you feel good.
Hmm.
What?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
can say no
because
just because.
what's the point? And I think about my friend's party, and I could talk about it now. I went to my friend's party. I wasn't feeling the best. She wanted to have a young ladies grown and sexy type of vibe, right? We went to a chair dancing class. It was supposed to be black and white, and I'm in here coughing and stuff because I don't feel good. You should have stayed at home. Why did you come if we're coughing in the chair dancing class? It's not cute. You know what I mean? It's a birthday party. And so, yes, say no if that's what you would rather do. And everybody can have a great time, and you can have a great time doing what you really feel like doing.
Right. Well, you know, we talk about in Sheila and I's book, Still Point, we talk about the
Mhm.
5 skills of self care. And the
Mhm.
fifth one is about boundaries. And it's about saying no so you can say yes. So
Yes.
that, you know, old school, a way a lot of people were raised, and especially in the South, you know, that women,
Hmm.
we say yes and we're polite and we, you know, what, like, we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And we've got to, no, we don't want to be mean or rude, but it's okay to say no to protect our boundaries and to protect our time and what works for us. And the
Hmm.
other thing, and I have to practice at this, I'll be really honest.
Yeah.
We can say no without a
A
whole
reason.
paragraph or a whole reason. Like we can just say no.
Hmm.
Like a no is a no. Like we don't have to make up this amazing excuse, or maybe it's not amazing. Like maybe it really is
Right.
true, but
Of course.
we don't have to do that,
Have to give anything else. And I
right?
think, like, for me, that's one of, and maybe through our journey we will give verbiage to all of this stuff, but that what you just said is one of the main things that I think about with women connected in wisdom, and remembering to take up the space that you have for your life, because women's task in the household caregiving has been free monetarily. You think that my time is free. That's
Yeah.
what that's not the case.
Right.
So holding that space and remembering those boundaries and finding the verbiage, especially when we're talking about environmental wellness and pushback that we might get. I think the reason that we over explain ourselves is because people expect an explanation, and if
Right.
if you feel like you shouldn't give one, then they'll have to deal with the lack of an explanation and get the closure, excuse me, that they need from their own life. But um, that's something I'm working on too, is not over explaining or feeling like I have to prove why this is my answer, unless it's somebody that is working through the details of that situation with me and they need to be privy to the information that comes from it. Then that's
Right.
different. But the
Yeah.
boundary is very important to keep.
I grew up in a family
Mm.
that really the only excuse for not showing up was if you were sick or, you know, really sick. And so that's a dangerous story to have, that you can only stop or take a break if you're unwell. So I've done a lot of work around that. Like I've done a lot of work around that you're allowed to take rest and you're allowed to say no just because,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I think it's a very
yeah.
common story for a lot of people too.
And that's what something that really resonated with me with Still Point. You don't have to rest only when you're sick or only when you don't
Right?
feel good, because then also we're only considering the physical aspect, is usually what people are talking about. They're not talking about mental and emotional. And I just had a traumatic event that affected me, and I need time to process it. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about
Right.
if there's some reason that your hands and your feet can't operate for whatever we wanted you to do, then you should be here.
You know,
Besides that.
I grew up in Texas. I grew up
Mhm.
in I was the daughter of a Texas football coach. So
Mhm.
literally we had this saying in when I was growing up about no blood, no foul. Do you know about that
Mhm.
saying?
No,
Like
but I think I understand it. But how would you explain it?
like if there wasn't blood or broken bone, nothing happened here. Nothing to see
Mhm.
here, right? Like it's a horrible saying and it's a horrible way to live your like it's like, what? No, you can be
Mhm.
really injured without seeing blood or without seeing
That's a
bone.
good point.
And but it's just what you were saying about like all it could have been a traumatic event. Like that we don't the world doesn't see, or the world doesn't
Yeah.
know, or grief and
Mhm.
loss. So many millions of people are experiencing profound grief and loss the last 2 years, and
Yes.
stacked on top of each other, stack,
Mhm. Mhm.
um
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that doesn't present as a broken bone or a cast, or a neck brace.
Right.
It's on so much so more on the inside. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And that too for me, especially because we talk about football players and skills are so lined up
Mhm.
to each other that emotionally we expect it to be the same too because you think that you would be okay if you were in my situation with the details that you have, you think that it feels like the paper cut to you, but to me it's still a broken rib that didn't come through the skin, like you said, so you don't see it. But
Right.
that's something else outside of the nose and our boundaries with our time. Also, respecting how people and women say they feel about certain situations that happen.
Especially women of color,
Hmm.
that accepting their experiences as they are. Because I,
Hmm.
I do know from my work in racial equity that so many times white women, we just gloss over it. And it's like, no, if our sisters of color say they're experiencing this way, believe them,
Yeah,
right? Believe them. Oh,
absolutely. And that goes back to knowing what you need and knowing how to ask for it and holding space for yourself. You know, manage your time. Don't try to do too much. What else? I think
oh,
we
will
pretty much
you
covered it.
read the next one to me? Because I need this one. I'm working on this one currently.
You want to do the be realistic?
Yes, that's the one I need to hear.
Absolutely. So the next point, y'all, we already is be realistic. Be realistic. Even pre-pandemic, the happy lives of people shown in those holiday commercials are fictional. All of TV is fictional, just in
Well,
case you
yeah, that's
didn't
true.
know.
Yeah.
Okay. We all have struggles one time or another, and it's not realistic to expect otherwise. Sometimes it's simply not possible to find the perfect gift or have a peaceful time with family. Yes, even Zoom family gatherings can be stressful.
I realized I read that earlier, but I evidently needed to hear it again.
It's okay. Yeah, we can whatever you need. We can read it again.
I was
And
thinking about being realistic with time, but I do think it's the same thing when you think about it. Like
yeah.
when you look at the commercials or when you look at the shows and everything's just magically done, right?
Hmm. Who
Well,
did that?
realistically, who did that? Who did that? Where did
Right.
that fit on the calendar? Who paid for that? Or who, like that's the, you know, that's
Yes.
that's the thing I think. Joe and I were having this conversation. It
Mm.
was it's been years ago. It was a house before this house that we currently live in, but his brother came to visit. And when we had moved into this house, I had really decluttered. I had only things that came into the house that I loved. Now the garage, I mean, just full transparency, the garage had boxes. It wasn't like
Mm.
had all my stuff together. Don't get the wrong impression. But he came to visit and he was like, "Oh my God, y'all's house looks amazing. Like, how do you keep it this clean?" And Joe, and I can't remember his exact words. I should have recorded them so I could use them for years to bludgeon him with, but that's not kind. So let's not do that. But it was something like, "Oh, it just kind of magically happens." And I was like, "What? What? What did he say? It magically happens? No, no, it does not magically
Took me
look like
hours.
this."
Right.
Right? So,
Yeah.
but I do still struggle with that. Like, what is realistic? Like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Like, okay, I think it takes this much of time, but how much does it
Yeah.
really take? And giving myself
Yeah.
the space. And here's what the other thing is: giving myself the space to rest afterwards. Because I may have it
Yes.
down that it takes me an hour, but I may need a break before I go on to the next thing. Like, and to give myself that time, right?
Yes. And honestly, that's with a lot of stuff. And I've realized that I think last week after the holidays, I said, you know what? I want to take a day after the holidays to recoup, or I would like to take it to recoup, just like I do for vacation. And I started thinking about it more when all the kids were doing homeschool for COVID. And okay, they're in front of a computer, they need time outside. It's like, you know what? Yeah, I actually do like time in between work, in between stuff for the house, and You have to be realistic. And it's interesting that Grant Cardone actually is the person who really nailed that down for me. He said it's going to take more time and more money than you think it is. And I said, you know what? It finally clicked. He's so right. It's going to take more time. And so giving yourself that grace that you're human, that you have no way of knowing that XYZ would happen before, it's actually good that you're realizing that, because that means you're on a new level, and just adjust accordingly.
Right. I know I'm
Hmm.
taking time right now to really look at what I want to create and co-create in
Yeah.
2022 and
Yeah.
block out those schedules. And I know a lot of people that are listening probably are. And really, I want to read this off the article. And we're not going to get to everything the article said, so we'll put a link in the show notes today. But
Hmm.
this is Shannon and I's jam right here. So I want to be sure and say this one out loud. Set
Yeah.
aside time for yourself and prioritize self-care. Schedule time. So put it in your calendar, folks, for your
Hmm.
self care in order to sustain your community care, right? Schedule
Yeah.
time for activities that make you feel good. It might be reading a book, going to the movies, getting a massage, listening to music you love, taking your dog for a walk, taking yourself for a walk. It might
Hmm.
be just sitting and look at your Christmas tree lights or your Hanukkah
Hmm.
lights, right?
Yeah.
It is okay, and I want to say it's more than okay, it's vital to
Hmm.
prioritize alone time you need to recharge.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, you can't pour from an empty cup. So is it possible everything that you want to do with life? Of course it's possible. Is it going to look exactly like you thought it was going to look? Of course not. So
Right?
what I know, I don't know what the day is going to bring, but I know that I started off with gratitude, and I'm going to take care of myself, and I can go from there. When not everything that I'm trying to do, again, even with good intentions, I'm going to operate a little more sharper than I intended to, just because I didn't take care of myself. So if I ever get to a point where I feel like I don't need to do this for me, I really try to remind myself that it's also for all the people that I'm about to go overextend myself for, when I bring that justification to the table. Um,
Right.
because they're not going to be happy with the type of person that shows up when I pour from something that is not um, aligned the right way. And that would be
Right.
me taking care of myself first.
I always think aligned and I think grounded and centered. Like, what
Yes.
do I need to be grounded and centered for this
Right.
moment? Every regular day, but also during the holidays, there's a lot of
Yeah.
chaos out there, y'all. The energy's
Yeah.
just like whipping, woo, like you drive around and you're like, woo, take a deep breath, folks.
Literally. Yes.
So
Yes.
we will put this handling stress during the holiday season in the show notes. We've also got a few other articles in there that we came across that we're running out of time to talk about today, but there's one about
Right.
stress management, um, uh, our top 5 tips for a healthy holiday season. There's a resource I wanted to give a shout out, that one of our Women Connected, Dr. Cynthia Phelps, who's the Inner Ally gal,
Hmm.
who was on our show first season, I believe. Um,
Yes.
she was telling me about a resource called sherecovers.org,
Hmm.
and it's for women in recovery, and it's self-identified. It's like it can be from drugs, alcohol, overeating, shopaholic, really whatever. But there's an incredible online community that's free for women across the nation. And I just wanted to give a shout out for that because it's an incredible resource that women may need this time of the year, especially because I know there's a lot of triggers if addiction is in the background around the
Yeah.
holidays. So yeah, and I also put in, I don't know if I told you about this, Shannon, but next year I'm part of a conference, a Sovereign Women Conference in
Hmm.
2022 that's coming up in February. And I put a link to that for our listeners to check out because that's going to be here before. I was like, oh, I've got time to talk about that. But hello, like
Now is
we
the
are
time.
just a couple of shows away from 2022. So
Yes, we are.
that's pretty incredible.
Yes,
Pretty
we are.
incredible.
And this
Any
is
holiday shout outs or things you want to give for ShealoGlo?
mm, just well, yes, I will tell you. So, what we're about to talk about, like we said, we're setting up our schedules for 2022. Right now, we are talking about feet, and a lot of diabetics have to check their feet, or should be checking their feet on a daily basis. what hadn't thought about it. The secession, I believe it's the loss of sensation. I always forget the word for
Mhm.
it, but sometimes if they don't feel it, they're literally walking around with bruises and injuries on their feet, and don't know it because they can't feel it. So checking your body daily for both the things that feel good and things that may need some attention is vitally important. So we're ending the year off at the feet, and next year we're going to go from head to toe, teaching everybody how to glow from head to toe, starting with the scalp all the way down to the toes in December 2022. So if you want to be part of that and you know this is an area that you would like more information in, go to ShealoGlo.com and join our subscription list. We've been giving out information and I look forward to more in 2022.
I love that. And you also so generously give our listeners a Wise 5 discount. So if you
Yes.
are a listener to Women Connected in Wisdom and you are ordering over at ShealoGlo, be sure and put in your Wise 5 discount code so you can get that as our gift to you, since ShealoGlo is one of our sponsors that we are so grateful
Yes.
for.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
talking about environmental wellness today, talking about the holidays, we've talked about a lot. What's your
Mm.
wisdom in action this week, my friend?
Mm. I'm going to intentionally spend time outside at least one time this week, because my outside time used to be when I would run. I'm not running anymore. So I've changed the exercise, but the outside time is still necessary. So I'm gonna do that intentionally at least one time this week.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
Mine is right along with that too, is to get outside every day and spend some time, some quiet time if I can make it work. It's hard with Monty is a 6-month-old puppy. So the quiet time is a little negotiable there, but getting outside in nature for sure. Even on days that are kind of, because if we stop now, then it'll get us out of practice throughout the whole winter. So
Exactly. Exactly. And getting ready for summer definitely started last week. What? So yeah, we're staying consistent and maintaining our wellness.
I love it. Well, I have so
Yes.
enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much, as
Of
always.
course. Of course. And we talked about celebrating our year anniversary at the beginning of the month. We look forward to you guys being with us. So, last week is our last episode of the year. So, we are finishing out strong. We will see you next week live at 5. In the meantime, be well, be wise, and be whole. We'll see you soon.